with perspective. We can use our cameras later on. You have zoom, which is a simple magnifying glass zooming in and out. You can do that with all of your scenes as well. Does the same thing as the mouse wheel. Zoom all zooms out or in all 4 of your viewports. Zoom extends will zoom on the scene that you're highlighted in, that your viewport is active. If I am zoomed out on all of them and I click on the zoom extends all 4 scenes get zoomed in to the maximum possible size. So go ahead and take a few minutes to play around with this, move your objects around a little bit, bring in some other objects. This is a cylinder. No, we did a cylinder. What I want to do is a torus. Torus is like that. So first click, adjust the radius. This is the second radius, the thickness. And go ahead and bring in any of the other objects. Teapot is a standard one. I'm sure you've seen this throughout your professional careers. Cone brings up. Second one will bring the thickness. The cone is something fun to play with because you can make it flat on the top, as though a cut-off cone. Create tube. Tube. First click is the radius. Second click is the second radius. Third click is the height. Again, we can use orbit to look at all of our objects from different angles. Pyramid. First one is the base of the pyramid. Second click is the height. This is forced to make a point at the top, unlike the cone. And a plane. Plane is a very simple object we use for grounds mostly, or walls. Plane is a two-dimensional object that is completely flat. There is no height option available. Now notice in our front or left viewports, the tube, the torus, goes underneath that plane. It is created on the plane, so the bottom half of it is below it. Well, we don't want anything below it, so let's raise that up. You can put it up in the air. It's fine. In the respective viewport, I'm going to maximize it and go ahead and zoom around. Doesn't have to be exactly like this, just have something fun to play with. Go ahead and bring these in. You want to change colors? That would be preferable. Make the ground deep green like grass. Take this a step further and start messing around with your objects, changing the scales of them if you want, as well as rotating them around. Get used to that. It's an easy exercise. Once you are done playing around, underneath standard primitives, which is the box, sphere, cylinder, torus, and the ones we've been using, you go ahead and click on it and you'll have much more options. Extended primitives are different objects that you can use, a little bit more complicated to work with, and usually are only used in specific situations. Chamfer box is something that we can go in and just deleted one. We can go in and change the fillet. Smooth it out a little bit. This is made mainly for chamfering the edges, not so much to create a smooth object. We can change that later. Oil tank is exactly what it seems, a little bit rounded on the top and bottom. Pills you can use that for. Spindles, same thing. Make that in Dreidel, Denkan, and go ahead and play with all these. This one's a little bit nicer, let's make it a little bigger. Change the amount of sides with this object. Let's go ahead and play with these. When you're done, I would change around the colors a little bit more. Make it a little bit more unique. To see what the software has in store, you can go through all of these if you want. The only ones you're going to really want to use are the primitives. Doors, they have bifold, pivot, and sliding doors. They're a little bit more complicated than you would think to use, and we'll go over those in another week. Windows, again, pretty simple to use. This would be a window for a thicker wall. It's hard to tell right now because it's not. There's no materials on it and no glass. We'd have to change that. Mental ray, do not use that one. AC extended is something fun and we will be using quite frequently. Wall is something that's pretty simple to use. What it is it builds off of your last point. So it's not really designed for exact measurements. So you architecture guys will not be using that as much as you think. Foliage will bring in trees. Obviously we want to scale this tree down. You can scale on all the axes that we talked about, Z, Y, X. If you go in the middle and the entire gizmo turns yellow and you click down, it scales all three axes at the same time. When you select your object, it goes into detail. When you deselect it, for rendering sake, it creates a bubble where your foliage would be. Foliage, there's a lot of different options as well. And even more if you want to look online to get them. Dynamic objects, dampers and springs. These are objects that are, let's use a spring. These are objects that are heavily modifiable. You can increase the turns and decrease the turns to create a more complex or less complex object. I've done this for DNA before. Lastly, the stairs, which you would exactly think would be what they are. Stairs. Okay, so we have a big playpen of a bunch of objects that serve no purpose with each other. Now, when you're happy with your scene, I'm going to want you to save this scene. If you're not happy with it, go ahead and just play with it more. I didn't put any thought into the form of the scene. And I hope you don't put too much thought into it either. I just want you to play around with it, get used to your objects. Again, if you Alt W, you'll see all of your objects by going to Zoom Extend All in all three of your scenes. When you have a lot of objects that are the same color, it gets harder to distinguish them. That's why it's good to change the colors of your objects. When you're happy with that, we're going to save it. Go to the M button, and you're going to go to Save, and we're going to name it Object Garden 01. And for you guys, I want you to go Object Garden 01 dash your last name. You should have somewhere good to save your stuff. I'm going to go right to my desktop. want you to save it in the Scenes folder. By default for 3ds Max, that Scenes folder can get very confusing and complicated. It's good to have a folder specifically for the project you're working on. And later on we'll show you how to do a project folder, and everything that you do, all the materials, all the animation, all the scene items will be placed in that folder. It'll be very easy to control. Right now, save this as Object Garden 01 dash your last name, and I'll have instructions on how to upload it. That's the end of tutorial 1.